and welcome back to Manager Dragon Comic Review, coming to you live from Seattle, Washington. As always, I'm your host for the evening, Daniel Doc Gentry, and it is never car sounds that are going by with me because I know where my mute button is. But joining me are our comic gurus from Manager Dragon Comics, Woody and Alex, and welcome back, Keenan.
Hi. Glad to be back.
Keenan, sit still.
Okay.
Cool.
No, bounce around. It's a lot more fun. I was waiting for somebody to say dance monkey. I'm just kidding. So we'll jump right into it. We got a full half an hour of talking about one and only one comic, well, not comic book, graphic novel, and that is Spider-Man.
Graphic novel.
Noir.
We'll call it Spider-Man Black. That's what noir means.
All right, so while you're here, Woody, you can finally give us some background on comics instead of just leaving us hanging, dangling out in the middle of nowhere.
I know. And by the way, just real quick, like, you wanted to know about why I picked that one odd 6 issue of Brimstone. I never read the comic book before. I'm not familiar with the series. I'm not familiar with the character at all. I entirely wanted to see, like, if it's a good jumping on point for somebody to be introduced to the character. And I thought it was. But that's fine. Anyways, moving on to Spider-Man Noir. So this is like a alternate universe version of Spider-Man that I've been super interested in reading for quite a while. It takes place in 1933, except for one typo I found in the book, which says 1932. And it basically is like takes place during like the Great Depression era, right before Nazis took over Germany, and deals with basically what if Spider-Man entered into like a different, less advanced area of New York. We don't have all the super science superheroes, but yet it's still kind of a familiar thing. As a character, he's not as powerful as the regular Peter Parker, but and he also doesn't have the strong moral center and background that Peter Parker is usually known for too. So it's like a hard to read Spider-Man, in its own self-contained universe that has stakes, and characters can actually die for good. And I positively loved the book, particularly the black outfit he was wearing. So there we go. What do you guys think? Take it away. Keenan's here. Why don't you start, Keenan? What do you think?
Well, I love the art. I think it's very well executed. It's very nicely put together. The story is beautiful. I think it's a very, very nice Spider-Man story, and it's nice to see what Spider-Man is like in a different universe and with different moral values going on with him. He's in a much tougher place, and he's seen some stuff. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that kind of different take and that little bit of a different twist on the same character. It's still Peter Parker. It's still Spider-Man, but it's a different time, man, and it's a harder world. So it's interesting to see that. And there was a point in the story that really highlighted that. It was when Aunt May asked him for his gun.
Yeah.
He's carrying a gun around, and he shot a dude, right? Mm-hmm. And right then, he had to make a choice between whether he was going to be the non-lethal Spider-Man, and he chose to keep that gun and keep packing it at that moment.
Yeah.
Right. MCU Spider-Man wouldn't do that. Spider-Man Ultimate, wouldn't do that.
Nope. Well, he doesn't have the moral upbringing that preceded Peter Parker's life. Like he wasn't responsible for the death of Uncle Ben in this universe. He had to witness the murder of Uncle Ben.
Right.
Who became inconvenient.
Right. So where does that moral lesson of with great power comes great responsibility enter in? Where do we get him? Well, anyway.
Yeah.
I've talked long enough about this. We'll probably hear from Alex now.
So I definitely enjoyed the story. That definitely engrossed me quite well within it. So I liked it how it felt familiar enough that it felt like it was part of Peter Parker, Spider-Man's mythos, but at the same time it was a retelling where it didn't feel so alien that it was like this could have been another character that they could have just introduced and said like, oh, this is just this new person. So it was enough of the familiarity of like how, you know, when he was first created during the 1960s and continued his various stories of like, you got a piece of like how Peter Parker's core character is. Like, he's very into science, you know, him being a photographer, certain aspects, but just different enough that it felt like learning some of the history about the Great War and that post World War One and that pre-World War II era, you know, like the culture, the feeling, the way that New York and that surrounding area was. It's like, it felt like it really fit. Like, it felt there was a good amount of research. There was a lot of good details, even with like, you know, that missed part, like you said, of, you know, jumping time period. But then again, hey, there's comics that do really worse on that, where it's like these characters go through multiple administrations of different things, and you know, it's only a couple of weeks in comic book world, but yet new presidents come in and leave. But you know, if that's one of the only faults that they had on that, you know, that's not too bad.
I only found 2 typos in the whole book.
So, you know, I mean, sometimes that's better than some others that we've seen, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like, as story wise, I felt like the story was the strongest part. The art, I really did like it, only because it gave me that kind of feel of something that would be during like the Roaring 20s, the 30s, and such. It's not a major style that I really adhere to, but for the story aspects, I felt like it was a good pick. It really enhanced part of like my immersion into like the story and being able to go like, okay, this feels like it really fits. It doesn't have that 4-color 1960s or 70s kind of feel, but this story and art really work together in a beautiful marriage. And I felt like lettering wise, I didn't see anything too glaring.
No, I liked it. It took place in the winter. I thought that was a nice touch.
It definitely did feel like a New York winter.
Yeah, and I also like that that this version. Do we have a jet fighter going on or something? What's that scraping noise?
Hey, Keenan, can you mute?
Are you sure you're not getting carjacked?
No, I'm not.
Aw, sad.
Keenan, you with us?
I'm here.
Okay. I really like that this version of Spider-Man wasn't as powerful as the regular Peter Parker. Like, he had the adhesion ability. It seemed as if he didn't have the same scale of super strength, and he definitely didn't have the full web powers. Like, he could spray webbing on you and like net you up, but he wasn't swinging around. It's like, I kind of felt like he actually needed the gun to compensate, and it also seemed like his spider sense was not nearly as potent either. You know, because usually that allows him to like bob and weave and evade getting shot. And there was a point where he almost gets killed because somebody's shooting at him, and it's like you have a more grounded, down to earth character. Like, there's a bit more realism to the character. You know.
So I mean, for a character that gets power from like a more kind of supernatural sense, it still felt like he was a street level character.
Yeah,
he wasn't
for sure.
You know, any of the levels where it's like he's a more powerful, and he's definitely not normally an Omega level kind of character. But like this was very much a street level kind of comic.
Yeah, I mean,
hey, hold on 1 second, guys. Keenan, can you mute when you're not talking?
Yeah, sure.
There we go. Sorry, I was having a hard time hearing you guys. Go ahead.
Yeah. Something else I really liked was the aspect of, like, there's something I've spoken about before, is like how can a superhero character just stumble upon the villains and crime? It wouldn't make sense. Spider-Man swinging around New York City wouldn't necessarily find a supervillain to fight, and which is what was nice about Spider-Man Homecoming, was like, he's running around New York, there's nothing to do. He's just screwing off. And in this one, you had somebody had already gone to the effort of doing the research and figuring it out, right? And then they gave him all the information. And so, like, he could more believably go after the bad guys because he knew where all their hideouts were, and he had all the dirt on them and all the information that you need to actually execute a superhero career. And I really like that aspect of it.
Yeah, it was definitely nice.
Yeah, the story actually made sense.
And there's a lot of motion going on in your space, buddy.
No, I heard breaking glass. Did you lock yourself out?
No, that was just a chime.
Oh, gosh darn it, that would have been great. I'll tell you my little set on this, and it was simple. I'm not sure how I feel about this. At first, it was pretty exciting. You guys know me. I like the whole real-life superhero thing. And that part of me, it dragged me in. I don't like the cursed ancient spider god talking to him after he gets bit.
Yeah.
There were little tidbits there. But art, I was actually very impressed with the art here. It's a mixture of new and old. I did see that. It was old style, what you guys were talking about, like 1930s and 1950s comics. It had new styles in it as well. It had the details of people in the background while emphasizing the details of the people up front. It is a beautiful comic that way. And if you guys are somebody who just picks it up for art as you're seeing the pictures go by, these are actually screenshots from the graphic novel, which I thought was cool. I don't like the little things that they changed in it because, again, I like the real life. Like, Batman getting his butt handed to him was cool. Green Lantern, when we did that one with, what was that, Earth 1.
Yeah.
Earth 1 was incredible with them. And I kind of thought this would be the same thing, and then all of a sudden there's the picture of the spider god who communicates through one of the spiders after all the other spiders eats the dude, and like there's this, oh, well, if I bite somebody bad, we just consume them, but if I bite somebody good, I imbue powers, and I thought it was a little hokey. I did, that was
So
you.
it definitely did have that kind of feel, like it was one part like this could have been supernatural, and in one part it felt like drug trip.
Yeah, and I'm not kidding. It was one of those things where I wasn't sure about how I felt like it. I like I said, I'm talking about it now. It was like I'm not sure if I liked that. I don't, probably because it didn't continue. It wasn't like there was another vision a little bit down the line that was like, oh, okay, now it all is coming back together. That's you, Woody. It is.
You're right, Doc. Yeah, you're right. They could have fixed that by having another vision in there somewhere. If that spider god was actually driving the plot in some way, more significant than just here's some powers, good luck.
I think he did, but we didn't see it because I seem to recall there was a second vision, but there was also the part at the end where the demonic spiders don't kill Kraven right away, and they keep him alive long enough to take out the main villain at the end. Not to ruin the plot, but it's like there's that part where we know that they just eat you to death, and at the end when they were being used again, they actually seemed to operate on their own with a mission to stop the villain.
And on the lettering, and that was just my story thing, and I'll be honest, I didn't make it through the entire thing. Again, one of those times it was just time, effort. You asked me to read 2 comic books, no problem. You asked me to read something that's made of 5 or 6 comic books. I'm going to have a little bit of time constraints. I did notice in like the first 3 though, the lettering was great, and it was just once or twice that I lost track of who was talking. I had to stop, go back, and then re-look at it, and I figured it out by context, but the lettering threw me off right there in those little parts. All around, it's a good independent comic book. If you're jumping into this, like we've said in the past, with Spider-Man lore in your head, you might want to forget some of it because yes, Uncle Ben dies, yes, Aunt May is still there, but the rest of the story is inherently different except for what he calls himself. I didn't say I didn't like it, I'm just saying it was different.
But it's a good standalone book. Like if you just want to read a graphic novel and you don't want to be tied down to continuity or have to read anything else, to know about it, you can pick this book up from scratch, and you are on board. And
But-
it's a complete story beginning to end.
But don't pick this book up and think that you're caught up with Spider-Man in general. That's all I'm saying.
Oh no. Something else I wanted to mention is kind of an aside. There was a video game called Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, which I was unable to finish playing, but it featured Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Noir, and Spider-Man 2099, and you could alternate between universes, playing the different characters, and all of them were working towards the same objective ultimately. And Spider-Man Noir, I thought, was my favorite version to play in the video game. Like his levels had the most fun for me.
I did like that it was low tech.
Yeah.
Just to bring it back, we're in this part where we always write what's in the future, and we've come so far in life and what we do and what we've invented that now we get these little far-fetched things like, Tony Stark's Iron Man being a suit being able to be called to him because he makes Vogue things with his hand now.
Yeah.
And then, and we just get into this stuff where I like when we go back on these, like Gotham at Gaslight, Earth One, and this. It's awesome to see the superheroes without the tech, without the, what it is. And I like that the Spider-Man suit was just like goggles. So I think it was in the movies, and it was like the second costume that he made with the red ski mask and the goggles and together.
Yeah.
I like that. I really like that whole different. I'll be honest with you, the gun thing, I don't know how I said on that one. Mostly because he had these other things that he could do. He was extremely fast. He was dodging bullets while running down the, originally when he was jumping down the alleyway. He can cling to things. He was shot webs. I'm thinking I like the gun in the revenge portion of Peter Parker, but I'm not sure how I feel about a gun with the Spider-Man character.
Well, it's an interesting point because that's like something like I think Alex brought this up, but that point was being addressed where he confronts May Parker, and she tries to get him to give up the gun to be a better hero, and he doesn't. But then, like later on, after that encounter, he does, for the most part, tries to operate without it. It's like what we're basically seeing is the evolution of the character. I think he'll always have a hard edge, this version of Spider-Man. But I did feel like he was going through a character evolution where he was becoming a little bit more like Spider-Man, the one we know, and it he kind of like the evolution of the character wasn't in the origin story; it was in the adventure as he went forward. And
these are hard. You're talking about shoving 6 books or shoving mythos into 6 books to cover the questions that are going to happen. But you get what I'm trying to say. Normally, graphic novels are 6 books, and these were long editions, by the way. So,
but I mean, I'm also something I liked about it too is like when we do RPGs, we usually go to Heroes Unlimited for superheroes. And the characters in Heroes Unlimited are a bit kind of like, you guys talk about being more of a street level character. It's like, the character power level is usually more toned down compared to what you see like in Marvel, DC, and some of these more, epic comic book universes. And so I'm like more accustomed to a less powerful character. And I think it works better overall. And because you shouldn't be picking up a locomotive and throwing it at the bad guy. And, again, like, I really liked that aspect of the character where he clearly wasn't lifting 10 tons. like Spider-Man can pick up a forklift and just beat you to death with it if he really wanted to. And this guy would do that if he could, but clearly like he couldn't. And I really like that aspect of it. I like the story has stakes, that people can die permanently and he can suffer very real tragedy. And it's the advantage of being a character that is not monetarily tied into the continuity in the canon.
It comes back to the Superman theory, though, we were talking about a little bit, which is Superman's original power was he could really jump really high. He couldn't fly. It was never his thing. And somewhere down the line, he learned to fly. Somewhere down the line, he got X-ray vision. Somewhere down the line, he burned things with his eyeballs. Somewhere down the line, you know what I mean? And so they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It is cool to come back and see something at its basic, which doesn't have an unlimited supply of what you can do.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know why Sony doesn't just like let Marvel have Spider-Man, because there's 50 alternate versions of Spider-Man they could do movies about. You know, like the Into the Spider-Verse film they're doing with Miles Morales. Brilliant. I'm excited to see that movie. I don't remember who I was talking to, but we were talking about, like, why don't they do Spider-Man 2099? They could do Spider-Man Noir as a movie. Like, these movies, Marvel, the MCU will inevitably get the character back, but they're not going to do those characters for a long time. Sony could be doing those characters. They've got a blank slate and do whatever they want. Everybody will be happy because it's holy shit. Spider-Man 2099 is in a movie. Spider-Man Noir is in a movie. You know, like, why don't they do that? This would be a great film. You know, a gritty crime drama with Spider-Man. This movie would pack the house.
Yeah, I think it's a continuity thing though. I don't think they want another Spider-Man going on while Spider-Man is going on.
Well, I mean, I guess we'll find out, because DC's trying it, and if it works for DC, you know, I mean, the thing is like, Sony
wait. Your argument cannot be DC is trying it, because DC is trying it because everything DC's done up till now, besides Wonder Woman, was an epic failure.
And we're gonna find out if it works for them, you know, because they're actually talking about doing like a Red Sun Superman movie.
When DC sets the climate and Marvel is the following thing, we know that the whole world, cats and dogs sleeping together.
Well, it's not Marvel. It's
Mass
Sony.
destruction.
Sony wants their own Marvel universe separate from Marvel. They want to ride Marvel's coattails and basically survive. They want to revive a failing film company by parasiting onto somebody that knows what they're doing. And I think they should just go full in on something that Marvel will never do. That they can do their own thing. And yeah, you know, it's different. Maybe there's a continuity point. Maybe people think it's weird. But if it's well executed,
well, I get it. But
great.
When you do it, the Marvel Universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe saved comic book movies by creating a movie into a movie into a movie into a giant gathering and doing it through progressions of movies, and that's basically how they saved the comic book movie industry, because up to that point they all sucked until they started this plan and they started doing what they were moving into, what they called Phase 1. Yeah, and when they got to Phase 2, it was brilliant. Now, if you have that going, and right now you have a version of Spider-Man in that, you do not want another movie coming out that is related to Spider-Man to confuse people, is what I'm trying to say. I don't think Marvel's going to do it. Sony might, but I don't think Marvel wants that, because Marvel has a Spider-Man right now in this universe that they're going to continue to move into their Phase 4 and 5 programs.
Well, it's a question. It's a question of how well the two companies can interact, because Spider-Man: Far From Home is the last movie on the contract, and
so I do have a counter argument to you, Doc, about like the confusion and such. So, X-Men franchise, you had Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, and in the Marvel movies, you had Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to individuals that had really no care for the comics, and they were able to say like, oh, okay, this is the X-Men version, this is the actual Marvel version.
But there was...
Sure. So, I mean, talking about the...
Granted, it's
talking about the X-Men continuity.
Right.
If you follow the thread of the X-Men movies, they're incredibly confusing, and they're discontinuous in very weird ways. Mm-hmm. But people still watched them. They were successful movies. Logan was the star child of the review circles for weeks, wasn't it?
Until Deadpool. But
until Deadpool.
Well, I mean, like, again, they're running into the same problem Sony was running into, because you essentially had films which were getting worse and worse. They had diminishing returns, and if literally without Logan and Deadpool, they probably would have been begging Marvel to take them back.
But with this, and I just want to answer this because that was a good counter argument. And to back, I would say, and look what the question was in Quicksilver, when Quicksilver was running around walls, and then there was Quicksilver in the Marvel universe, and everybody was like, I don't know what's going on. And the truth about it is, where X-Men were part of the Avengers helped out the X-Men, or were part of the X-Men, those two things had related for years in the comic book industry. This isn't a brand new theory that happened, but arguably the Quicksilver in Marvel Cinematic Universe versus the one that's running around taking people out of fires, I like the version from MCU better. But that's a personal opinion.
I'm actually with Doc on that because he wasn't OP. Like one of the criticisms from this trailer is like they have this mutant that's so powerful and so fast he can solve any problem, and they go off to fight the main bad guy and leave him home.
So it's just like it's a Flash comic book.
Probably why they killed him off in the MCU.
Yeah. Well, no, it's Flash. Yeah. Flash is the most overpowered character in the DC universe. Period.
Yeah. And the X-Men version of Quicksilver is just as powerful. Actually, is faster than the Flash. From the for at least the way he's been portrayed in the TV show and movies.
But can he shake himself to go into another universe?
No, he probably can't vibrate to another universe. But
Flash has a problem. Superman is almost as fast as he is, or is he faster? Is Superman?
No. Flash can just smoke Superman.
Well, I love how the comic books have always made it back and forth where you really never. There is the truth of it is there really is no definitive answer. There really isn't, because every time they go to race, something happens, and there's never just them running and seeing who's faster. There's always some BS or something going on and blah blah blah. And I think that's brilliant. I think they should keep that going. It should be a running gag, because it really is brilliant, so that nobody knows that Flash is truly the most overpowered character. People think Superman.
Alex, you want to jump in?
So there was a panel that I did with Stan Lee was the person that was doing the panel, and like one of the greatest things that he was talking about is like these various crossovers or when you write various comics. And what it really came down to was it's a mixture between like, what your target audience is. You don't want to get like his example was, you don't want to get the Aquaman of Marvel is
Submariner.
Submariner. You don't want to get Submariner, and you don't want to get like, say, the Thing, fighting each other, doing their thing, and pissing off the fans of each of those characters. So you basically have them, tie or do something of that nature. But the point is, it's like, it's really the writer's responsibility to say, like, okay, this is going to be the OP character, or this is the one that, the fans are going to be more in favor to.
Yeah.
And it was just that funny level of, like, him talking about it, where, it's kind of that argument of, okay, who's writing it and who's the audience?
Those things also need editorial control too.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Oh wait, you mean you don't want to invite the Batman fans, where Batman figured it out already before it even happened, and that's always the argument?
Yeah. No.
Well, like there's
Batman is best. Actually, Batman is a good example of exactly what we're talking about in terms of power levels, right? Yeah. Because when Batman is well written, Batman is at his best. His stories are best where he is limited and where he doesn't have the upper hand. The sort of the standard cycle of a Batman story is he goes out to confront a problem, and the problem kicks his ass, probably about twice in a row, before Batman finally figures out what's going on. And now he's injured, he's tired, he's suffered a lot, but now he knows what's happening, and his knowledge and his determination is what saves him, and what then, So Batman is a smart character, but it's not like he knows everything in advance. When they try to write him that way, the stories just suck.
Mm-hmm. But it's okay, because he has a thing how to kill all the superheroes, so don't worry about the universe.
He has a yellow lantern ring just in case he has to go after a Green Lantern.
Right, but if you ever take down... But if you ever take down that Chekhov's gun, and if he ever tries to put those plans into action, they got to fail, and he's got to fall back on some other plan B, or he's got to pull something out of his ass, because that doesn't make an engaging story. Batman's got to lose first. He's got to learn hard lessons first. and then he can whip.
Right, which is
That's
probably
how you
point.
do a good Batman story.
and it's
A
probably
good point
what-
to that,
oh,
Keenan, is like when we reviewed Batman versus Predator. You know, it was a
Yeah.
perfect example of exactly what you were saying. He got to fight against the Predator, got completely injured, and then it was like, you know, recovery
Nice.
time, and then it was figuring out like how to defeat you know, this threat from beyond the stars.
So the,
and
the
with
Predator,
Dark Knight Returns with the mutant leader.
the Predator didn't just kill him outright,
He tried.
but he didn't.
Batman was too well prepared.
It's the Predator. I'm just saying.
It's Batman.
I
He has
think
the Batmobile.
I think the only reason Batman didn't die is because the Predator was interrupted somehow. I'd have to go back and read it again.
Yeah,
But the
he was
Predator
interrupted
was
by.
in character.
No, but
Well, he was interrupted by the Batmobile. Batman summoned the Batmobile and managed to it crashed the Predator, and then he got into the car and got away.
of course this will be
Oh, well,
episode 30 when I say this, but I agree with Keenan. Batman is at his best when he's written with a weakness, and I think that was the reason people loved Batman comics originally, was because it kind of gave you that, hey, nothing can ever really knock you down, you choose to stay down kind of story, and you can defeat anything if you keep going, and blah blah blah, and you know, and add any other cliche thing here. But that was the cool thing about Batman, and then like I said, if you get in, everybody knows what I'm talking about. If you get into an argument with a Batman fan online, no matter what it is, Batman wins because he already had a plan for it, and and it cracks
Yeah,
me
exactly.
up.
It's a misunderstanding of the character, because that isn't true. He didn't have a plan for it. He goes in because he's got that personal courage. Anyway, I already said this.
Nope, and
Sorry.
you're right, and I'm agreeing with you. So just mark it on the calendar.
Batman is so well prepared that he knows the fans will side with him when they read the comic book, and he knows that will help him make it through the crisis.
Oh my God! So
And
his
bringing it-
Deadpool abilities.
Bringing it back to Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah.
Bringing it back to Spider-Man Noir. That
I
actually,
love
this book actually reminded me of.
I love the red ring, by the way. I want to say this. I want to say that like how they had the red ring around his face for the spider sense. Like that was a cool effect
All right, let's
because it was different.
let's roll into final thoughts. We put a lot of time into Batman today. Keenan, I'd like to hear your final thoughts.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Me?
great, good, Keenan, go. Okay, now my final.
Stop it, Keenan.
No, I couldn't hear Doc.
Yeah.
Okay, my final thoughts. I think it was well drawn, well executed. I like it a lot, and I'm more engaged with this comic book than I have been with any other comic book we've read so far. I'm actually going to pick it up and keep on reading it.
Even Batman versus Predator.
Well, I loved Batman versus Predator, but that was just a one-off thing. I read the whole
Yeah.
thing, and it was great. But
Yeah.
there aren't more Batman versus Predator books. If there were, I would read.
There's a little bit more Batman Noir, or Spider-Man Noir. Not a lot, but there's another graphic novel, and then the story continues in Spider-Verse.
Alex, final thoughts.
Art was good. If you really like the feel of the 1930s, I would definitely say this is a book that you might enjoy. Also, if you like Spider-Man, might not be completely up your alley, but this does still feel like it's still part of the character. This is a book that I would say definitely pick up and check it out for yourself.
And of course, Woody.
This, I think, is my favorite Spider-Man story I've ever read, and I wish I'd read it sooner. I would give this a 5 stars. Like this, it's everything I'm looking for in a quality superhero book is here. It's, like there's no weird leaps in faith. You don't have to suspend your disbelief to get into it. Everything's pretty well thought out. It works. The story is complete.
Spider-God.
Yeah, I don't care. It can be a supernatural story. This isn't a story about science. It doesn't occur in the atomic age. It occurs in the pulp age, and because of that, it works on that basis because it draws from the archetypes of the time period it's from. It is a well thought out, well executed story with real stakes, real difficulties. The hero is not so powerful that he can just plow through anything. He has to really think it out, and he actually needs help from people, or he doesn't win. And like this is a really good, well written, well executed story, and I enjoyed it. And I'm really disappointed there's not more. If there was more and it was at this quality, I'd be reading this book every month.
Okay,
It's great.
it's
If you
the
go
only
by
thing-
decade, the spider changes by decade. In the 70s, it was a radioactive spider.
Yeah.
More modern, it was a genetically engineered spider. But this one was a magic spider.
Yeah,
If it were the 80s, it'd be a laser spider.
the only thing that would that would make this book better is if they had a Beta Ray Bill noir.
no, it's
That would be great.
but if you follow the timeline of what you're saying, it's what were people most scared of at that time?
Yeah.
So maybe cocaine spider.
Yeah, there you go.
Cocaine
That-
Spider is never scary. He's just really skinny.
That would be the RoboCop one.
What other kind of spiders? You have a nano spider, a plasma spider.
Oh, let's bring it back
Anti-Spider.
around. Let's wrap this up. We will BS offline.
In the original show, some of our best episodes of the stuff we didn't record that happened after the show. Oh my god!
You guys assume I turn the recording off. I just get the stream down. That's all.
Yeah.
Hey,
All right.
Woody, where can they find all the comic books? Are we working on that? Are we getting it up? Are we doing it? Are we doing it? Are we doing it? Are we doing
yes,
it? Are we doing it?
Yes. We are about to relaunch the new website. I actually didn't hear back from you, Doc, whether the blurriness was fixed. So
I made my entire D&D group, including Alex, look it up, and nobody else is reporting blurriness
on a smartphone
on their phones. Yeah.
Okay. I'll go check again. Alex, why are you doing this?
Because it's only you.
Okay. Well. Then we'll redirect and we will do a full relaunch, and then we'll move on to the next website that we have to do.
Relaunch, and if it is a problem, let me know. Hit me up. Shoot me an email at MD ReviewCast, and just let me know that you're seeing blurriness, and I am trying to find out why it's not working on your phone.
Yeah.
Rox.
Well, it's possible it just needed more time to load. Maybe it's like it just wasn't, because sometimes you get these things and there's like so much information and maybe you're on, like you have low signal or something and it just doesn't load the picture fully. And so, but if everybody says fine, then we are going to get back in business and we're going to pick this shit up again and restart. So cool. Good to know.
How about pages? I know people follow you guys on Patreon, other places. You guys come out with any pages anytime soon?
What? What did you say, Doc?
The new pages, like people follow you on Patreon, they give you, and you pop pages every now and then. Do you guys have anything else coming up that we should be watching out for?
Well, it's as soon as it's all done, we're gonna as soon as we get everything launched, I will be sending you new pages, and we'll be getting that all those updates made. And no point in posting anything if we couldn't let anybody see it. So, but if the website works, we will be back on our weekly schedule starting on Tuesday.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Read more comics. Keep it nerdy. And live your dreams.
Yes. ConwayTheSeries.com.